How's it going, Lewis?
I'm free, man. I'm free.
I know.
No, college is done. I'm like all these like ever since we started, I've been complaining about like assignments and exams since the start of this in this little introduction piece, and I don't have to do it anymore because they're non-fucking existent. It's great.
It did set us back a day, but at least you're free now.
Yeah, well, yeah. I did have an exam yesterday, but that wasn't really the reason why we got set back.
Well, yeah, but regardless, the point is it fueled the reason for why you weren't available.
Yeah, and it ended up fueling me in another way. Fueled my alcohol addiction, but like, you know.
Well, you are Irish. It's almost like standard.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Well, when you grow up in Ireland, it's basically, you adapt to the culture.
Yeah, but like, I'm still born in England. I still have an English passport. So
the culture is not something.
nationality.
Culture isn't something you're born with, Lewis. You grow up with it and you adapt to it.
But that isn't like my nationality. Like, I can be like an obsessed with like another culture and live out that culture, but I'm not like that culture's nationality. You know,
like weebs. Are you talking about weebs?
Yeah, exactly like weebs.
All right, before we get too off topic, we should probably get into the shows.
Yes.
So, our first show that we usually cover being Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. Yeah, you can go first, Lewis. So, what did you think of this week's episode of Kabaneri?
Well, I got so pissed off that I made a list of things of why this show pissed me off. Like, last week, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I was thinking, okay, you know what? It's early stages. It's going to be fine. It's going to improve from here. It's the introduction. We're going to keep going, and we're going to make this better. It got worse. It got much, much worse.
Oh, my.
So, basically, first on my list is that for the first part of the episode, everyone absolutely loved Mume. Like, it was almost sickening about how much they were like praising her and how like she is such a great asset for the team and how she's just a part of the family and everything. 10 minutes later, they all hated her because she didn't give a shit about a dead dog that she didn't even know about. Like, Mume has seen a lot of death. Like, this is probably the only somewhat positive thing I will say about her. She has seen a lot of shit. Why the fuck would they lead me to believe that she cares about a dog dying? It doesn't make sense. And the fact that like they added to that by making everyone hate her because she has no soul. Tara was such a nice doggy. He cared so much for everyone. And I was like, so what? She's probably like being killed. She's probably seen people get killed right in front of her. I really honestly think she has the benefit of the doubt here. Second thing is that secret mission that they were going on about with that dude with like the missing leg, well, fraction of his leg is missing. That was like on guess I gotta use that mission, like move level of badness, because they were being vague for the purpose of being vague. They weren't given any explicit details of something which was probably addressed in episode 1. I forget if that entire thing with Mume was addressed, but they bring it up now, and they're being super, super, super vague with it. And I'm not saying, like, mystery is bad. They should keep mystery. Mystery is good. When they are just like saying, something deep is going on here, guys. Look how deep this is all going. This is deep. We got something deep going with Mume. It's super deep. That's when it just comes boring and just hard to watch. Also, why does Ikma like Mume? Like, I get why others might like her because, she saved them all. And, after everything that Mume has kind of affected everyone else, they probably kind of objectively, they've probably seen her good light. Why does Ikuma like her though? Because she has been a nothing but a dick to him, other than like that probably scene on top of the train, the stupid train thing in the last episode where she kind of gave him a motivational speech. I honestly don't really get why Ikuma has that kind of like caring for her, like the fact that like she cares for her so much that he's willing to put himself through ultimate jeopardy to save her, and he's gonna stick his neck out for us time and time again at the expense of being ostracized by others. I don't really see it. I'm pretty sure they're just ham-fisting a relationship onto me here. Well, not a romantic relationship, but just a relationship, a tight, strong relationship that does not make sense at all. On the topic of Ikuma, his VA was fucking weird this episode. I know Tatsuya Araki's definition of creating tension is have people shout, but his every line was done at like a high pitch and at a high tone. It was like he was constantly given instructions to shout each and every line that it felt weird. It was so out of place because his VA was doing pretty goddamn exceptionally well up until now, but now he just kind of like the focus isn't on me. I guess I gotta shout to remind that I'm a big person in this plot. Anyways, God, there's a lot of things on this list.
I love that you have a list.
There's only 3 more items.
Oh, only 3. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they're all on Kabaneri now, and they kind of all blend together. So, anyways, on the topic of Kabaneri, I said this on the first episode and of this, that it is vital that they keep the Kabaneri actually threatening. They are not threatening anymore. Sure, they can kill people, but when you have Mume going in there, literally mowing down an entire horde of them, 1, while weakened, and 2, as if it was nothing, and only getting a scratch, like, and it was only at her worst when she was able to get thrown off that balcony, and that was only with those super Kabaneri people. Kabaneri just are not threatening anymore, and it's the same problem that Attack on Titan had. It feels like everyone that dies is not a triumph for humanity. It's just another one to add to the list of other cannon fodder that don't really seem that much of a battle won. Because at the start, it was such a huge thing that the Kabaneri were such a huge threat and that they would literally wipe out humanity. And killing 1, piercing the heart of 1, is a massive feat. You got Mume over here doing backflips and shit and just killing them without even looking at them. It does not make them look like threatening at all. They're dumb. Which kind of leads me on to my next point. Why the hell are they cooperating together? They cooperated at the end to make that big bad evil guy giant mecha thing, and I guess the only way to make a non-threatening thing threatening again is to make it super big, because, I don't know, big things are scary. But why are they doing that? Because the Kabaneri's main goal is to get blood of humans. I don't understand why they were willing to share the blood of, I don't know, a few hundred among thousands of Kabaneri. Because Kabaneri, it doesn't make sense that they would hate each other, but on the same token, it's kind of redundant why they would, like, share a meal. Because they have been depicted of being absolutely idiotic tools that are just going to seek out a nearby human to eat them. They shouldn't... I don't know. I don't get why they have that kind of ideology of, like, let's work together and share this feast, when they've only been seeing... The only horde mentality they had was the only horde mentality they had was that, you know, they go one Kabaneri gets one, that one turns into a Kabaneri, and then so on and so forth, and such a horde is created. I don't see how they could think, yeah, let's get them to work together because they're intelligent creatures. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here and I've just got so annoyed by that episode that I'm just willing to criticize every single part of it. But they have to give me some solid reasoning as to why they decided to work together. And that is the end of the list.
You dropped your like pen or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah, no, it was actually my notepad. It was
Wow. That was like a mic drop, except with your notepad. Wow.
yeah, the nerdiest of mic drops.
Wow. Yeah, my thoughts are somewhat similar, albeit to be fair, I watched this episode with a throbbing headache, so that may have somewhat influenced my opinion.
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to pay attention in general, but I kind of agree with similar points, but for slightly different reasons. Like, obviously on the whole dog thing, they wanted you to feel bad for the dog because it's a dead dog. It's the dead dog writing. You like dogs, don't you? It's dead. It's sad. Even though we've literally never seen this dog before, or maybe we did, I don't remember. But it's dead now, so you should be sad. And so that way, when Mume says the thing, you're like, wow, what a bitch, you know? But it's...
Yeah.
What they did, though, is, like, it's almost, like, twofold. Like, you're supposed to be sad for the dog, but at the same time, what Mume says is supposed to make you, like, kind of, feel for her in a way, because you kind of get the understanding that where she's coming from is from her own history and predicament. And that's how she's approaching the angle. And it's kind of the same thing with her being a fucking jackass and doing her own damn thing when they go outside. Like, she's, you know, she's I don't know, trying to make herself seem worthwhile by mowing them all down herself or something. Like, it's like almost a self-esteem thing or something based on her situation. But the problem is kind of like something else you said, where they're being too vague. Like, this can kind of go into an interesting conversation about, subtlety as opposed to mystery, as opposed to front-loading information. Most people would be like, the common criticism is always, people always love to show out the throw out the show don't tell thing, and as an extent make an argument about how you shouldn't just tell people what's going on in the story all the time. But sometimes you kind of need to, because, like, for example, with Mume's situation and everything she does, is you get the impression that all of this stuff is based on, you know, stuff that's going on with her situation in history, but that's all you can really do is get that assumed link, but you can't really take it the step further where you then feel sympathy or understanding for her actions and stuff like that, because you need to understand why she's doing it at the core of it, so you can feel sympathetic for her situation. But we don't know what her situation is, other than she works for somebody who's like a dick, I guess. And because it's so vague, like, you don't really get that extra connection you need what those moments are trying to portray. So withholding information from the audience can serve a purpose at times, but it can hinder you trying to do things, trying to make the audience feel certain things at certain times, which they can't because they don't know enough. Also, yeah, the giant Kabaneri thing is stupid. Although I don't think it's because of, like, the Kabaneri working together thing. I just think a giant shadow Kabaneri looks fucking retarded, and it's just a dumb idea, and it just looks silly.
They gotta have super enemies, like, you know, that's the I think that's the entire reason that they have, like, you know, the Colossal Titan. And God, it's so hard to not compare this to Attack on Titan. It's horrible.
Well, I'm pretty sure the team has directly cited the, you know, Titan as, like, the main influence for what they're doing is let's do Titan again, except this time within the original work, so we have slightly more freedom. So that's what it is. It's Titan, but this time it's not based on any material. Also, they already had super versions of the enemies, the ones that can wield weapons.
Yeah.
Which were a huge deal last episode, but then Mume just killed it in, like, one fucking hit this one, so, you know.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, like, last week you mentioned the entire thing of, like, the unintentional humor of, like, the baby.
Oh my god, that baby's still the funniest scene I've ever seen.
This episode was when that super Kabaneri just, like, took her and threw her off the, like, balcony. Because, like, the animation was, like, so, like, sudden. This episode was kind of weird in general, but, like, it was just kind of like she was there, and then she kind of just jumped over here, stayed in air for, like, a second, and it was almost like a Looney Tunes moment where, like, Acme just kind of looked down, held up the sign, and went, "Welp," and just flew down. But the real thing that really nailed it home for me was a sudden cut to Ikuma, and he just went, "Oh!" And that was entirely it. It was hilarious.
You gotta have that reaction shot, man.
Yeah, it was just a sudden, oh. It was great.
You mentioned also, I guess something else I could go over that's, like, opinion-wise stuff, is you mentioned Ikuma's VA, and I agree that he's been doing alright so far, but I've also never really been fond of the voice choice that he's doing. Like, his voice the entire show has sounded, like, really throaty. Like, it sounds like he has, like, food stuck in his throat all the time.
Yeah.
Except for a couple lines, like where he like forgets to do it or something. But he does that thing where like it sounds like he's constantly choked up, and it's really just a personal preference thing, I guess. Like the literal voice VAs use usually is not the big deal. It's the acting that matters, but it's just a weird choice just to listen to. And the fact that he's not consistent with it, I think, makes it worse. Like, I'd be fine if he did it all the time, but the fact that he stops doing it sometimes makes it like more noticeable and more annoying. So, I don't know, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I remember, like, those sort of, like, throaty scenes, or, like, when he's kind of going low-key with it, he's just kind of, like, in a very somber mood, so he's kind of get that sort of, like, thing there. The thing where it bothers me the most about probably his voice acting is when he's doing a triumphant shout, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like, when, in the last episode, when he was, like, saying, just give me the gun, and I'll have the opportunity to take him down, or whatever he said, and his voice got really, like, I don't know, crackly.
Voice
I don't know what
cracky?
the words. I suppose it is throaty. And it's like his voice break, and he tried to like fix it himself. I don't know how to describe it, but it was really, really weird. It did not sound as triumphant as possible. It was just kind of like a sort of... It was a weird voice break, but not really. That's the best way I can kind of go for it.
Yeah, it's... The VA work, like I said, mainly just personal opinion, but I'm not sure. I would rather he be more a bit consistent with it. Like, there are those times where, like, performance-wise, it almost seems like this voice choice is hindering his acting a bit. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't... I mean, it would be nice if those moments didn't happen. But like I said, it's mainly just, like, a personal preference thing that I don't really like the voice he's using. And the fact that he's inconsistent with it just makes it worse.
Could just be his, like, actual voice, though.
I mean, maybe. Hasn't he voiced other characters where he hasn't done this really, like, throaty, like, food stuck in my throat voice?
I don't know, like, he was, he's Ushio in Ushio Totoro.
Yeah, he almost voices, Ushio in, like, an old school protagonist kind of way, where he's, like, a lot more, like, I guess, I don't want to use the word, but edgy is really the first thing that comes to mind. He's, like, more, he's, like, I don't know how to describe the voice, but he's, like, it's more intense than, like, your usual shonen protagonist, and, like, because I guess it's a bit darker than your usual shonen thing, because it's older shonen, so, like, it's almost like his voice is rough around the edges, because, like, the writing of, like, old shonen manga is, like, rough around the edges, too. Like, it almost reflects the quality of the work, which I like a lot, but it doesn't have that throaty quality that he has in Kabaneri. Like, he doesn't... Maybe I just haven't been paying attention, I haven't heard it as much, but it doesn't sound like he has the same, like, something stuck in my throat voice. He has the same, like, it's more scratchy, like a scratchy kind of, like, young voice, which I feel like works a hell of a lot more than the one he's doing in Kabaneri.
Yeah, like, I don't know, it definitely is putting on a weird voice, and I guess it's just some sort of vocal direction that they've been telling them to do, because it seems like a very specific type of voice that he's putting on that it stands out more than anything. Like, I guess that's really the entire point of it, is that it stands out and we're able to kind of notice him, because Yuki Kaji and Eren, that was a pretty standout voice, even though Yuki Kaji, you hear him and everything, but I guess the fact that he's standing out is probably a job well done for him in their eyes, of the creators, but sometimes it kind of they kind of end up shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to, like, him, super dramatic scenes where he ends up, like, just shouting and doing all these Vocaloid things. I don't really know how to describe it even, but, like, it does really draw you out of the experience more than anything than bringing you in, I feel, at moments.
Yeah, I can get that. It's, I mean, and I guess it's kind of silly for us to spend so much, I mean, we're both kind of, like, a bit passionate about VA work and stuff like that, but at the same time, like, we are spending a lot of time on this rather than, like, the actual show and the things that happen in it. I don't know. I guess it'll be kind of interesting to see where the show goes from this point, because like obviously it's somewhat of a two-parter, even though it's not really like a two-parter. It's just mainly like the show sometimes just ends on cliffhangery sort of style stuff like this. Like now they're in the cave and they gotta get out, and the crane isn't up all the way, so the train is stuck, and they got to do that. So I don't know.
It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I guess it should be important to clarify, like, I have my issues with Kabaneri, but I'm still, like, nowhere near, like, dropping the show. Like, I've pretty much at this point dropped the shows that I don't care about anymore. Like, there's a big difference between, like, not liking something a show's doing and just, like, not being able to watch it anymore. And while Kabaneri is annoying me in a lot of areas, like, it's not enough to make me stop. Like, I probably am going to watch Kabaneri all the way through unless it does something real stupid, which it could do. Who knows?
It probably will. Like, yeah, no, I'm on the same boat with you there. Like, it's hard to, it's hard to look for promising things or be excited for promising things within the show. Depending on how the next episode goes, is whether I'm actually just going to lose faith in it. I'm not going to drop it because, well, I just feel like it's a show that I need to watch through, but it's just, I'm going to lose faith in it real quick, and I'm just going to be super cynical of it, and I don't really want to be, but I feel like unless the next episode does a complete 180, I'm just going to end up being a real ass about the show for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat, but, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that'll do it for Kabaneri, so we should move on to the next show, which is Hero Academia. So, how was this episode of Hero Academia, Lewis?
Okay, well, okay, like, they spent more time on Iida, the glasses dude, and Uraraku girl.
Yeah, her name is weird. It's like Uraraku, like you said. It's weird.
It's a strange name. But which is what I wanted, and they provided it, so automatically the show has gained a few of my points. So, yeah, woohoo. But I'm gonna turn this back on you and saying, do you still honestly believe that Bakugo, the blonde dude, I remembered his name this time, is still not a dick to Deku?
Well, I never said he wasn't a dick. I just said that he's at varying levels of dick.
Well, no. Okay, I've been constantly saying that he's an absolute dickhead. He has no real reason there, if you will, other than like that one little cutscene or flashback of them just walking through a little forest thing back in the day. But that's not enough motivation for me to jump on board with him and be like, yeah, he's a total... I can see why he's so angry at Deku for getting a quirk, because, yeah, and his reason for being so furious at him during the entirety of this episode is justified. I have not seen enough reason thus far at the halfway point of this show to make me go, yeah, his actions are justified. Because he's supposed to be a hero here. He's supposed to be a good guy.
Well, there's a difference between justifying a character's actions and understanding them. Kind of like going back to Mume. Like, you don't really understand what Mume's doing because you don't know anything about her. But they've been showing, like, at least a common logical thread between Bakugo's actions for why he's doing. So, honestly, if you don't understand why he's doing the things he does, then maybe that's on your end, bro. Because I understand.
Like, he's gotten a superiority complex, fair enough, but is he jealous? Well, he's not jealous, because how could he be jealous of someone that hasn't had a quirk in so long? Does he not like him and hate the fact that he's going to spend the rest of his school years with him? Well, that's a given, but I feel like, that doesn't really matter anymore, because he hated him no matter what. It's really just boils down to a poorly done superiority complex. And, like, it's just... See, like, with that superiority complex he has, there's no real need for him to be constantly beating the ever-living shit into him whenever the chance permits him to. He would just have a sense of like, oh, you're so shit, man. You only had like one good thing. And like the other times it's just like, he would wait for him to come to him because like, oh, he's so bad. I'm so better than him. He doesn't deserve my attention. That's what I'm getting. I could be wrong, as you probably are implying, but he's just a shit character. Like, I really do not think that his actions are really that. I was going to say wordy, but that's a bad word. His actions are really that logical so far. Like, I don't see the correlation between him wanting to put Deku down every single chance he gets by physically punching him in the fucking face with his explosive hands, because there has been no evidence to show that, other than, I don't know, that one flashback of them being happy, but then they didn't become happy. I don't get it. Like, yeah, I guess so. That proves your point. I don't get it, man.
Well, okay. The easiest way to make my point is to make a comparison that I've already done plenty of times, because just through the underdog-overdog kind of story versus thing, but it works in terms of Bakugo's character too, is comparing this to Mahoka. Bakugo's the character that Tatsuya should have been. Because what Bakugo is it's the conflict between someone, like, just naturally gifted and someone who has to work their fucking ass off to get somewhere. Bakugo is the kind of person who thinks, like, you're the quirks you're born with, like, define you. Like, if you have, like, this amazing quirk, like, you're super strong, it's your goal to be strong, like, that's it. Like, that's just how the world works. Like, you are born with these abilities, and that's how you work. And so, here along comes Deku, who at first is, a fucking nobody, which is partially the reason he's a dick to him, which, yes, he's entirely a dick to him, it's not justifiable. It's just a part of understanding Bakugo as a character. And you can understand him without, accepting what he does. So he's a dick to him, and then eventually Deku helps him out, where he then is less of a dick to him. Mainly he just avoids him and doesn't really say much to him. Until this comes to a head this episode, where suddenly Deku has a quirk. So Bakugo's world has just kind of collapsed a bit, because Deku shouldn't have one based on how his view of the world works. Like, you are born with these quirks, and that's how it works. And so suddenly Deku comes out and not only has a quirk, but using his finger fucking launches the shit out of his baseball, which I think may have even gone further than Bakugo did. So he's just like, what the fuck's going on? Which is where he has that little snapping moment where the teacher actually has to stop him. So what's going on is basically Bakugo is like the Tatsuya of this story. What Tatsuya should have been to make the story more relatable. Well, Deku being the main character. Like, you have the guy who's like got nothing and he has to work really hard to get what he wants. Whereas you have the other character who's like, well, you're born into this shit and then you fucking own it. So right now it's a very like heavy conflict of ideals going on right now, which is something I knew they were going to build up towards. I didn't have the perfect understanding of Bakugo's character until this episode, to be fair. But that's why I'm actually really interested in the next episode and their fight, because there's going to be so much going on in their fight as far as like their ideals being like polar opposites of each other, that there's going to be more going on than literally just punching each other. So in a way, I'm actually more excited for the next episode than this episode itself. But it also did have one scene of Naval Laser Guy being amazing, even though it was like one line. So there was also that really helped a lot. But yeah, that's why Bakugo's character is cool, and you're dumb.
Well, I already accepted that fact a long time ago. But hey, man, at least I'm right in saying that he's a dick. Like,
I never said he wasn't a dick.
You did say he was a dick.
Yeah, he's a dick. I never said he wasn't.
Well, I don't know, man. I'll try and keep an open mind with it in the next episode, but Jesus.
I feel like if there's any episode based on what's happened so far with his character, the next episode or the one after will sell you on his character, as far as, again, it doesn't seem like a character you're ever going to really, like, accept as far as, like, his ideas, but as far as, like, understanding him and, like, as, like, a core person, the next episode or the episode after will probably do it if it's going where I think it's going.
That's what I'm hoping for anyways, because I want some development between their relationship, because so far the actual character developments have only really been within Deku and All Might, I guess. And that is made for quite a boring watch, really. Like, 6 episodes in, I am just sitting there, and for a shonen, it is a surprisingly dull show. I know this is the training arc, so to speak, but as you said last week, this is going to be like a 12-episode show since it's Bones doing it. So, this next episode is, ironically enough, the next episode of Kabaneri is going to make or break the show for me, and the next episode of Academia is probably going to do the same as well, because the side characters seem to be on a verge or on a turning point of actually getting attention now, which is fucking fantastic, really. And there's also going to be, I guess, a turning point within the story as well when it comes to actually when it comes to actually dealing with Deku's underdog story. Now that he actually has a super ultimate power, it's really a matter of how he kind of trains that power and becomes a super badass son of a bitch that he's meant to be. Is that part of the story is really going to be the part that's going to win me over, depending on how they do it. Because the first half of the show has just been a big old mismatch of emotions for me, so it's really the matter of how this next part is going to go for me to actually go, yeah, okay, prove me wrong, please. I've been proved wrong. That's what I'm looking for right now.
Well, we'll see what you think next episode, although, regardless of what happens in the later episodes, we'll always have Naval Laser Guy.
I hope he gets like a spin-off OVA. That's what I'm genuinely hoping.
I think we're the only people who care enough about him to get him a spin-off OVA. I don't think he's like one of those characters. Usually the spin-off characters in shows in Japan are like, they're really popular in Japan. You know, like they have this huge following and then they get a spin-off because of it. Like it's almost unexpected. I don't think Naval Laser Guy is popular enough to get a spin-off.
Yeah, well, that's a damn crime right there anyways. Japan has the worst taste in side characters.
I love that his super suit is like just this fucking suit of armor with this just like hole at the navel so he can shoot his laser.
And a bitching ass cape as well.
And a fucking like glowing glitter cape.
Yeah, it's a great cape.
Alright, well, is that it for Hero Academia?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. A little quicker than Kabaneri, but that's fine because we're probably going to spend a lot of time on the next show, which is one we can actually agree on, unless something suddenly changed, is ReZero. So, what did you think of this episode of ReZero, Lewis?
I didn't actually watch ReZero today, which I usually do for my shows, but just keep them fresh in my mind. I think I watched it when it came out, so the events are a little fuzzy. I remember like the end was the entire plot twist with Rem being the murderer. But I think everything else that happened was just slice of life stuff, right? It was just kind of like, Subaru just dealing with trying to understand what happened when he got viciously murdered. I think that was it.
Yeah, the episode started where the last one left off, where he wakes up after being horrendously murdered, and this time basically he's walking a bit more around with Amelia and the maids, and this time instead of being a servant at the castle, he's just a permanent guest, so that he can look around and explore some things. Talked to Beatrice a bit, figured out about what would make him sick. She mentioned something about a curse, and just kind of generally hung around. Like, the easiest way to think about it is the episode before, he hung out a lot with, I can never remember who's Rem and who's Ram, so I just refer to them as Blue and Red. He hung out a lot with Blue, yet last episode. This episode, he hung out a lot with Red, and had the story about the ogres with her. And then after that, shortly after, for the most part, he left off to do the little stakeout where then the ending stuff happened. That's pretty much what happened this episode. Other than that one bit where he had like a little comedy routine with Puck, which was great.
Yeah. Well, now that's been refreshed. I feel like ReZero probably is doing a lot of things right where a lot of shows this season are going wrong. Because if you go to the ogre story thing with when he was telling it to Red, the vagueness there when she was saying, oh yeah, make sure you don't tell that story to Blue, because otherwise just don't do it. That vagueness was like, the sudden statement of it surprised me, and then the kind of like questioning of it. Well, why would she be bothered by that? Why that vagueness is really, really done well, I feel, because the mystery behind it was, well, it has mystery in its own right, because you're not being you were told enough about Blue to actually know she has a personality to her. So when you kind of thrust that little sudden, I don't know, almost spanner in the works in their character, that someone seemingly useless tidbit of a story is a complete goddamn off limit to her, is a little bit, it's very mysterious, and it's very, very well done in the vague department, I guess. Other than that, the plot twists, I remember being initially disappointed with it, because I kind of wanted it to be someone from another faction within the world, either from the titty girl, I forgot her name, I think everyone forgets her name, from from like way back when, someone from her faction, or someone from a completely different faction, because this mansion is probably a good location place for anyone to like assassinate, because you got like practically the next queen in there, or she's like third to the throne, maybe second, maybe fourth, I don't know. She's going to be like have a good position in the throne anyways soon, so there could be a good assassination work going on there with like another faction, or maybe just a hired assassin altogether from like a rival nominee for the crown, is that a word? I don't know. To be hired. However, I kind of thought about that, and I was thinking, well, it would probably be a lot more impactful if it was someone else, and maybe the reason why Emilia is not the only person who could be Emilia won't be the only person of interest to be assassinated. It could be someone else within that mansion. That could be someone that would want to be killed off. Could be even Subaru for all we know. So eventually I got around to accepting it. I've trust ReZero enough that they will give me a solid explanation as to why Blue is the one doing the killing, which is a very good thing to say, but it's just a matter of who their intended party was, because I would like to think that the reason why Subaru got killed off was he was just a part of either one, collateral damage, or two, no witnesses are allowed, or three, it's a cover-up to, it's a mass murder rather than a single murder. I guess that's the reason behind why he got killed, because I think that when he got killed off in episode 5, the last episode, I think everyone already was dead, because it was so quiet, no one was responding to him at all. So there probably is a lot of reasons to think as to why the murderer is going to do it. I just kind of want to know the actual reason as to why Blue is doing it, because even now it's still kind of confusing when I think about it, but I'm willing to just suspend my disbelief for this moment in time to just prepare for what is going down, because they did foreshadow it pretty well with her, with that entire story and the ogre story, because that means there's obviously something up with her. We don't know what, but there's something there. Maybe she's like, trying to help someone out in a very dire cause, because that's the entire point of the ogre story. But obviously we don't know that yet, and we just gotta wait and see. But overall, great episode. ReZero is just a good show. Great show.
Yeah, before I get into my thoughts on the show, something you brought up, sort of, that I've actually got a question for, as far as what you would think about it, is I was thinking about this episode, and what do you think about the idea that Blue isn't necessarily like the like guaranteed killer? Because what if last episode it was actually Red? Because they seem both equally, you know, they're twins, so they're both equally capable of doing same physical feats for the most part. And we spent a lot of time, Subaru spent a lot of time getting to know Blue last episode. So it seems like it'd make more sense if Red killed him from not really knowing him that well, because Blue seemed pretty happy with him. And this episode, he got to know Red a lot more and didn't really talk to Blue at all, and then she ended up being the killer. So what if the killer actually changes depending on who he talks to? Because events in general change depending on what he does. Who's not to say that the killer itself doesn't?
Well, I like the entire idea of a butterfly effect happening when in the show, but I would say the fact that like Red was so determined to make sure Subaru doesn't tell that ogre story to Blue was probably a definite giveaway to say Blue is probably, there is something definitely up with Blue going on. Not to say nothing's going on with Red, but I would feel like the entire point of him saying the ogre story had a definite reason behind it, because in the West, obviously not many people are going to know that story, but in Japan, I would imagine it would be a very, very common story, because it came up in Ore Monogatari as well.
Yeah, Ore Monogatari straight up opened the show on that story.
Yeah. So, like, it's probably a common theme, so I don't really see the purpose of having have Subaru tell that story in full, have Red say that thing about Blue, and suddenly the killer is just kind of optional, so to speak. It could be Red or Blue. I say the killer has to be Blue for a reason, maybe. Or maybe, you know, they could be working together. It could be Red and Blue, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're both definitely up to something, because we knew from the first episode of this arc, what's the master's name? Rosewall or something like that?
I don't know.
It's something fancy, but he was having that conversation with Red about whether Subaru would be a good spy or not. So we know something's going on with her, at least, too. But it is true that Blue being the solid killer does give you just in general more information about why she would be doing it, considering the fact that she still horrendously murdered him last episode despite getting to know him very well. And also something important to note is that in Japanese, or at least what's used in these episodes, is he had the demon story with Blue last episode, and then he had the ogre story with Red this episode. But in both, they are called Oni. So if we get to an explanation, that might be something important to keep in mind, is that they're the same word. Because that definitely was not an accident that he had conversations about Oni with both of them. As far as the episode itself, it was also like I'm in similar vein. Like, it's great. Like, I always love seeing the little things, you know, that change depending on Subaru's actions, and it manages to always keep like a nice tone throughout. You know, nice and kind of lighthearted for the most part. And then when shit needs to get serious, it gets serious. Like, it knows how to maintain its different tones pretty well rather than be jarring with it. I really liked the little interactions he had with Puck and Amelia in the beginning bit, especially when they had their little comedy routine, because it really signified what I like so much about Subaru's character, which is how he's so bluntly honest, and like he almost like can't disguise who he is. Like, he's almost too straightforward, especially like when he had the conversation with Red, and like, you know, when she asked who he'd want to be friends with, and he said both by holding both of her thumbs. It's Subaru's such a good character, because he's like, yeah, he has the whole thing where he's like, you know, aware of like meta tropes and shit like that, but as a character in general, like, it's kind of silly to define him by just that, because that's largely just for like comedic effect. Like, as an actual character, like, he's such a nice dude, and he's so straightforward, and he knows what he wants, and like, he tries to help people, and I mean, that's like generic traits you could give to really anyone, but the way the show portrays it is so well, like, especially with the comedy routine with Puck, where like Puck instantly gets what he wants to do, you know, as far as cheering Amelia up and making her laugh. Like, they're like on board with each other and doing that. Like, it's what you mentioned last week. Like, the character interactions are great. Like, the way they inform you about the characters, like, it's not just a way of like learning about the world. Like, you also like characters really genuinely develop, and like the relationships change based on their conversations and such like that. And it's really nice to see a show like, know how to inform, despite the traits being simple in and of themselves, know how to portray those in a way that's very endearing. Something I actually wanted to go over, though, really quickly was, like, I only live in, like, a little bubble, and I can only ever see, like, a small bubble of the anime community online, but, like, when I was reading around, like, a new complaint, like, I mentioned a complaint before was that people didn't like Subaru's character that much, which I understand but disagree with, for reasons I also just went over, as far as, like, how they portray his character outside of, knowing the meta tropes. A complaint I'm seeing is that people either stopped watching the show or they just don't care for it that much because they don't like to see the same things happen, which is dumb because it's yes, the same time like segment is happening, but I guess the complaint probably comes from the first 2 episodes where Subaru takes a while to figure out that he's looping. But after he figures out he's looping, like, he knows how to do slightly different things or intentionally follow the same path to learn new information. Like, yes, it's the same segment of time, but you're always learning new things. Like, even if the literal same scene is happening, well, not the literal same scene, but if, like, the same general kind of scene is happening, like, there's little small differences here and there, whether it's, like, the choice of words in the dialogue, or, like, the small little actions here and there, where the camera portrays whatever. Like, you're always learning new things in that same time segment, which is the entire point of the show, is to use the one time segment you have to figure out what's going on, and then what to do about it. And it's, I don't know, I feel like it's such a silly complaint to be like, oh my god, the same things are happening. It's like, well, yeah, there are some similarities, this is the fucking same segment, but the show's never really, like, stuck on the same kind of thing for too long. The only one I could feel people getting tired by is Subaru figuring out that he's time looping, which I don't necessarily agree with. I do agree it took a while, longer than most shows would take, but at the same time, like, the way they portrayed Subaru reacting to his looping, like, he didn't quickly think he was looping, and the way they showed that worked really well. Like, the first time loop, he went to straight to the warehouse because she thought her dead body was there, and then, like, everyone was alive, and then he just kind of went off of that, and then, like, the next time he got, like, shanked by the stupid fucking street gang. Like, yeah, it took a while as far as, like, literal time, as far as, like, how long you've been watching the episodes, but as far as what happens in the show, like, I'd say Subaru was, like, learning that he's time looping was, a perfectly reasonable amount of time, but I don't know. That's just a complaint I saw that I thought I'd bring up because I completely, inherently disagree with it, especially based on what the show is doing.
Yeah, I disagree with everything you're saying there. Like, whenever the show goes back over to a scene that they've done before, usually they just abridge it, cut it down, or literally just cut out all the dialogue altogether. Like, I remember one that the good comparison is when Subaru wants to become the servant for the house, and when he wants to become a freeloader for the house. When he's doing the freeloader scene, like, he has that internal monologue going on, whereas when everyone else is doing their own little chit-chat, which was happening before, and that all happened before, and then whenever it was implied that Subaru went through all his actions and he said all the same things he said. The only difference he did was he was like, oh, I want to live here for free. That was the only difference. So, really, yeah, they're going through the same time, but they're not really showing the same stuff over and over again. So it's kind of like a non-existent complaint, really, because it's I almost want to say it's factually wrong, because it's not the same stuff over and over again. Like, whenever they do come over the same things, they cut it out completely, abridge it, or just kind of like, paraphrase it. It's just, whenever, maybe it's because, like, whenever I really like a show, I'm willing to defend it to the death, but I saw that stuff, and it's just, ReZero is probably deserves nothing but compliments for how it's actually doing its time loops again, because there are a lot of shows, and even movies in the West, that did time travel really, really poorly, and will literally tell you same information over and over again, whereas ReZero, you're only learning new information each loop, even though, yeah, we've experienced the same time loop 2 times already. 3 times was the last time. Yet, I would say that there was no repeated information given to the viewer throughout those loops.
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, like I said, I can only see a small bubble of the online anime community at any point, so this could only very well just be a couple people and like literally everyone else disagrees. It was just something I noticed that I thought was like silly. It almost comes across like a complaint of someone who like doesn't like the show for actual other reasons, but they don't quite understand what those reasons are for why they don't like the show yet. And so that's like the first thing that like they've decided to latch onto is like, yeah, that's probably why, even though it seems like that doesn't really make sense, you know?
I would like to think that's like in a very small portion of the community, because it's a very, very cynical complaint. Like cynical really only really like would say that because, you know, it's a really stupid argument. Like, that's all I can say about it. It's a really stupid argument.
Well, it's a complaint that largely ignores context, which isn't something I'm averse to. A lot of people generally don't care that much about the context of certain things that happen in shows, and they only care about like the literal actions that are taking place. Like, I know there are probably a bunch of people that didn't want to watch this show when they saw that it was about time looping, because they're like, we just got erased, we just got time looping, you know? So, like, for the most part, a lot of people only care about the general concepts. They don't care about the literal execution or, like, the actual context of how those things are done, which is, like, not really fair for me to say they're wrong. You know, people are allowed to view the shows however they want. It's just, you know, it's something that I inherently can't agree with.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. What else is there to be said, really? Like, it's just, it's a weird complaint, and I feel like a lot of people are, it's going to sound very, very, like, judgmental of people, but people are very clutching at straws when it comes to complaints for the show, because other than, you know, complaints against Subaru's character and the fact that he's being too meta, I haven't really seen a legitimate criticism for the show in regards to the story that hasn't really been just clutching at straws really more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because I like the show. It's just like it's hard to really say whether someone's complaints are invalid, you know? Like, but at the same time, it's like it's almost factually wrong because like it's like the same events aren't literally happening. Like, yes, and before he figures out that he's time looping, he does some of the same stuff. Like, you see the gang intro scene, like, you know, 5 times, but it's so short that, like, the entire point is that Subaru doesn't get that he's time looping yet, which is almost like why they're showing this kind of stuff constantly on purpose, so that Subaru gets it. Because once he gets it, then that's when things have stopped, you know, repeating themselves, because he already understands, okay, it's a time loop. You know, and so the show doesn't really need to show the same things anymore. The only reason it showed it, you know, the same stuff before was because it was for the sake of Subaru and understanding the situation that he's in. So at this point in the story, like, there's really nothing that's being repeated for the sake of repeating itself. Like, it's all entirely new stuff and, you know, things you need to pay attention to. And honestly, you kind of need to pay attention to the small differences that are in the episodes, as opposed to, like, it just copying itself, because those little small differences each time are what's going to inform you about what's going on and why it's happening and stuff like that. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, ReZero's just been great, man. Like,
It really has. Surprise of the season, really. Like, it's been a very, very pleasant surprise. Like, it's really turned out to be an anime of the season contender, if not the anime of the season.
Yeah, the way I always judge shows is, like, I almost watch it the same way a general viewer would watch shows, and then afterwards I get more analytical about it, because, like, I almost go off gut reaction for everything, as far as, like, whether I like something or not, and then afterwards I figure out why I liked it or not. And, like, the first initial way I decide whether I like shows or dislike shows is 2 ways, which is, 1, how quickly do I watch the show after it comes out, each episode, and then 2, how much is my attention being held during the episodes? How often do I look away? How often do I pause the episode because I remember I want to do something else or check something? And there are only like 3 shows this season where like I'm watching them the minute they're out and they hold my attention pretty much all the way through. And the first one is obviously ReZero. Another one is the second season Assassination Classroom, which I'm enjoying a lot more than the first season, actually. It's been paying off a lot of things it's been doing. And then a third show that I actually can't remember off the top of my head because my memory is atrocious. I'm sure at some point I'll remember later on, and I'll just be like, oh yeah, that's the third show. But I know there is a third one that I'm watching the minute it comes out. Maybe it's Hero Academia. But I think I actually take a while to watch that show sometimes, so maybe not. But yeah, that's generally how I decide off the gut reaction as far as like whether I like shows or not. And so those shows that I'm watching like right as I come out, I'm like, yeah, they're good. Like I like them. And so then I would later on figure out, why do I like them? So.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much my reasoning. Usually I sometimes forget that I like a show as well. Like I sometimes download it and just be like, guess I'll watch this now, and then I'll watch it, and it's like, oh yeah, shit, this is actually really good. Yeah, I enjoyed this.
So you actually actively forget about the shows as they come out. You're just like, oh wait, I downloaded like 3 episodes of that show. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh sweet, 3 episodes. It's gonna be great.
I mean, I can actually see how that could be useful, because it's like then you get to marathon 3 episodes at once, but at the same time, it's like, really, how do you forget them?
Exams, it just fucks up my brain, man. I forget that I like things.
Wow. But are we done with ReZero? Did we cover everything we wanted to cover?
Yeah. It's been spectacular.
Yeah. Don't have too much time left, but it probably won't take too long to cover this. Is the last show being Bungou Stray Dogs, and the particular reason for that is because it's pretty clear, especially by the end of the episode, this is the first part of a two-part arc, I guess I should say, as far as the one character I can't remember the name of because I can't remember the name of characters. So
Kunikita?
What?
Kunikita?
Yes, Kunikita. That's his name. You're better at remembering names than I am. That's not too surprising. My worst subject in school was also history, because I had to remember specific dates. It's like dates and names, like things that are really, really specific, I can't remember. But general things like the synopsis of shows, I can remember. Like if I watched a show like 5 years ago, I could look at the title and be like, I remember the general synopsis of that show, but I wouldn't be able to remember any character names, any dates, stuff like that. Like it's always that super specific information I have trouble retaining. I don't know why. But anyways, two-part episode of Bungou Stray Dogs. We had the first part this week, and the second part will air next week. So that's why it's going to be kind of hard to cover stuff, because while things happen this episode, it's largely a setup for the next one. But regardless, what did you think of this episode of Bungou Stray Dogs, Lewis?
I really enjoyed the fact that they explored Kunikita's character a lot more this episode. He seems a lot more than just a very obsessive perfectionist, really, which is great. Like he's got like a standard, I guess, if you want to put it that way, that he's got to abide to. He's got to have an uphold system, and whenever his sense of justice gets impeded, he loses his shit. It's a line that stood out for me this episode was when the people were getting gassed and they all were dying like that. He said, people shouldn't die like this, and that really stood out to me because it really kind of nailed his sense of justice and just how he thinks of what's going on around him. Really, this episode really made me appreciate Kunikita more than anything, because I feel like that was the entire point of it. Other than setting up this arc, it was just to nail his character, because all the episodes so far has been very episodic, exploring their own characters, and this probably has been my favorite, which is surprising because I didn't really care for Kunikita at the start of the show. Now he's probably one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah.
I
thought you were about to say something.
No, I'm keeping it brief, man. We've run out of time.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd agree. I think the thing that stood out for me, as opposed to that line of dialogue that you said, was also something that stood out. But the one that really stood out to me was just like these little extra things they sometimes add on to characters that make me like them more, which is the fact that he feels responsible for that one kid's like dad being killed, and so he takes care of him. Like, the fact that he does that is like, it's like taking it's like thinking about the way a character views the world and how they would view certain things, and just kind of like adding those little extra things on that are like definitely extra as far as like the character. Like that side character we're probably not going to hear much from throughout the series, but it makes sense for it to be a thing that exists in the show and that Kunihita does because of his character that's been established. So like, an author being able to look at their character and saying, this is a thing my character would do in this context of like their personality, is always a nice touch, because it shows that the author really has a clear understanding of how their characters work on a very fundamental level, which is a good sign for things to come, and things that have happened too. Like, just it's like a good faith kind of thing. Like, authors being able to understand that their characters that well is like a good sign in general. Other than that, Moriano was fucking fantastic this episode as well. Like, he's really been nailing it the entire series, but he had a lot of fun this episode, clearly.
He's been great. Yeah, no, he's been allowed a lot of freedom, really, which is perfect for him, because he can take that freedom and just knock it out of the park. Whenever he has to go serious as well, he can nail it as well. He can nail that tone and really create an atmosphere with just one line of dialogue. I'm really eager to see when his character is going to get explored, because ever since that episode when that big reveal of his background, there's been that kind of growing sense of suspense. That aura given off by him is just kind of like, you have to take it with a grain of salt almost, because you know that he was part of the Port Mafia, the Port Mafia, and you kind of go, well, he's a funny dude, but he probably killed a lot of innocent people. Like, it has that sort of overlooking suspense to him, which is really, really great.
Yeah, by the way the show has been set up, it seems like I'm willing to bet that his character is going to be covered last, and maybe even simultaneously with what's his name from Port Mafia, the big evil dude.
Yeah, they do definitely have like some sort of connection, and it would make sense that they kind of have like a dual thing going on, while like, you know, they have like their own exposition while actually having probably a physical battle or two, maybe a battle of minds here and there. But yeah, no, it probably will be last. They probably already explored Asashi for the show. He'll probably just be either a foil to everyone, or probably act as some sort of interjection with Dazai and black haired with the white hair dude. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how that plays out more than anything, because I think the kind of like I noticed is that I kind of forgot about everyone else in the Armed Detective Agency. Like, at the end of the first episode, they had all those like dudes come in, and they were all like very like stand out. They had their own powers and stuff, but they've kind of been forgotten, and it's just been a 3-man show for the most part. It's just been Kunikita, Dazai, and Atsushi. And I don't really know if they're going to get an episode each at this rate, because after this arc is done, I feel like the show is going to try and wrap itself up and probably start on Dazai's arc, maybe. So I feel like they're just going to be in the background forever now, which I guess is a shame, because the character writing in the show has been pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's good. I think the point that we're going to get to is that this episode was good, and we're like more excited for the next episode though, because of it being a 2-parter. Like, it's kind of hard to judge it entirely without seeing the second part. So, but yeah, as far as like the other characters, like they'll probably stay side characters, but at the same time, that'll probably address them like eventually. Like, we had Rampo got his episode. But at the same time, like, they're still very clearly side characters. So, like, we'll get to know more about them most likely, but they won't, like, stay around for too long. Unless we need them for, like, later on in the story, which could very well be a thing. But yeah, is that about it for Bungo Stray Dogs?
Yeah, like, I've said everything I wanted because just Kunikita was just fantastic this episode. Really, that's all I needed to say on it.
Yep. So I think that'll about do it for this week. Do we have anything to say as like a closing thing, Lewis?
No.
Well, there you go. There you have it. So that'll do it for this week on our thing. I think I just said that already, but I'm saying it again because fuck it.
Doing it.
Follow Lewis on Twitter and his blog, which is the thing that he's plugged
Twitter
a couple times.
Yeah,
and I put in the description.
Theme now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can do that. Yeah, you could also watch me stream on Twitch. I have a weekly schedule now. You can watch me Tuesday through Friday, starting around 11 Pacific Standard Time and ending around 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I should have mentioned 11 a.m. Not just 11. It starts around 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's the schedule that happens. Is that about it, Lewis? Is there anything else I need to plug?
I don't know. 11 a.m. That's like 7 p.m. GMT, aka real time.
European time is around 7 or 8 p.m. for when I start, and then like 5 hours later or so is when I end. So there you go for European time. So that's it for this week. See you guys next week. Hopefully we won't be late next week.
Probably not. Hopefully not. Bye bye.